Is there a difference between going out and buying a record and then sampling it and pirating a sample pack that a fellow producer made? And then also, is it hypocritical to say, well, when you're using an uncleared sample, you're mostly stealing from a label, and when you're pirating a sample pack, you're mostly stealing from a producer that you might actually know? What's going down? It's the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. My name's DJ Payne 1, Erinn Knight's here, Dame's here. Just so everybody knows, Erinn's name is spelled E-R-I-N-N. E-R-I-N-N. I've seen it spelled. I've seen it spelled in ways that I've never seen the name Erinn spelled ever in the comment section. So shout out to everyone for getting creative. How is everyone feeling? I know things were tense leading up to me starting this. We started a conversation about how frustrating the platforms were.
I'm doing better this week. My back's feeling better. I lost a few pounds. I've been able to hoop because I have a knee injury too. So I've been, I still work out, but I just can't hoop. So that's been frustrating because that's my stress relief. I started intermittent fasting, dropped a few pounds. So I'm gonna keep that going. So I'm feeling good this week and into the new year. I'm looking forward to next year.
You got to start getting high now for stress relief, Dame. Forget all that working out. You're in California, you can do it.
I see you telling me that, and I see you post your shirtless workout videos all the time or pictures. Erinn, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I just started working with a nutritionist, so that's great. I'm learning about stuff that is traditionally healthy that isn't good for my blood type because he's focused on blood type, which is super good. So I'm feeling great. I feel like a lot of mental clarity just because of the way that he's been talking to me. And so I'm excited on the health tip to get even healthier in the new year. I have been officially working out or stretching and doing like flexibility stuff for 18 months now as of this week. So I'm really excited about like staying consistent with stuff like that. I think I drop stuff for myself all the time. I'm never consistent, but physical things I'm really proud of right now. So I'm doing good.
Nice. Good stuff.
Okay. What's a nutrition gem specific to your blood type?
So I'm AB. I have to find out if I'm positive or negative, but like, let's see, some of the things that were surprisingly toxic to me, like I love spice, but capsaicin is toxic to my blood type. So I can't do black pepper, white pepper, cayenne pepper, which is really frustrating, but I eat it all the time. And then corn is really toxic to my blood type. It causes inflammation, which makes a ton of sense for me because I eat grits all the time. I eat like corn tortillas all the time. So those are two things that were like very quick for me to omit. I'm trying to learn how to make hot sauce with other type because I can do habaneros and stuff like that. So I'm about to start making my own hot sauces, but I can't do vinegar either. So I'm just like getting into food science now just because I love hot sauce. So there's a few things that I was really frustrated about. Chicken, I wasn't surprised, but chicken is extremely toxic to my body type. So I can do lamb and I can do seafood, but I can't do shellfish or chicken. So those are three things that I was like, wow, this is really fascinating for me to know.
Damn, I got to figure out my blood type because grits with hot sauce. Anyway.
Listen, and I am a true Georgia peach. I love something like I'm wearing an Atlanta Forever shirt right now. I love Southern food. So like even like knowing that I have to now give up shrimp and grits, that's a hard transition. Chicken, I've kind of known. So it's been a transition for me for a while. I've gotten into the cauliflower. I can figure out how to like have substitute for hot wings, but I'm honestly really sad about the shrimp and grits.
Surprisingly, well, maybe not so surprisingly, this topic might reappear later on in the podcast a little bit. But anyway, Payne, what's you want to kick this episode off with your topic?
I want to close out this whole producers and theft conversation. I don't think I ever will though. Well, because that whole, and I want to submit this to you. It's less esoteric, I would say today, just because there was such an overwhelming response. A lot of it was thoughtful. A lot of it was chaotic. A lot of it was angry. And a lot of people just kind of brought up a million topics that had nothing to do with, the core of what I was saying, which was just pointing out hypocrisy. But this point, I think, is interesting, especially since it challenges me and hip hop culture in general, even though this is a debate that's been going on forever. Now it's contextualized in what we were talking about. So people are saying that sampling is the same as theft, which I would say is problematic. It's an interesting conversation depending on the people having it, though. Just because, comparing that to my conversation about taking, sample kits from people that other producers, your contemporaries, that kind of thing, to sample theft, I guess. I feel like you can compare. I think it's a fair comparison for the sake of argument, but you don't sue over a drum kit getting stolen. You don't sue over a sample or anything getting stolen unless the song gets huge. And small creators don't have those resources anyway. We can file a DMCA, right? Like when a website steals my content, and this is the same with any content. Like if one of the artists that you manage or the comedians you manage is getting their stuff stolen, you've done this before. You file DMCAs. All you do is get the stuff taken down. It can keep popping back up, and when you file a DMCA, even if the person's already made money off of it, you don't get a cent of that. It's just how it works, unfortunately. So it's fundamentally different in terms of the legal recourse. But is there a difference between going out and buying a record and then sampling it and pirating a sample pack that a fellow producer made? I don't know. And then also, is it hypocritical to say, well, when you're using an uncleared sample, you're mostly stealing from a label, and when you're pirating a sample pack, you're mostly stealing from a producer that you might actually know? There's a lot going on in this conversation, and even sample clearance, in my opinion, isn't fair. From my perspective, a producer shouldn't have to lose all their publishing because they sampled a break or they sampled a few seconds of a song. And then also from a recording artist perspective, I think this is super interesting. Sample clearance can obviously pay a little, but not always. So are the two of you familiar with Clyde Stubblefield? I'm only saying this because he lived his last days in my city. He was James Brown's drummer, and James Brown, I think, may be the most sampled artist in hip hop of all time. Specifically the Funky Drummer break, right? And that was Clyde Stubblefield. So it got sampled thousands of times, obviously by big artists. Public Enemy, Fight the Power, for example. I forget which Sublime song sampled it, but probably more than one. I mean, obviously these artists were getting that sample cleared. So you would think Clyde Stubblefield, it's his drums, he's getting paid. He didn't get a damn thing. He died broke. They had to fundraise for his funeral because session players back then, and to an extent now, are not considered composers and are generally just not cut in as far as equity in the song. Even the conversation about sample clearance becomes more and more problematic the more you understand the way intellectual property rights have traditionally worked in the music business.
That's insane. Imagine doing the greatest drum fill of your life during a session, maybe in the 60s or 70s, and you got paid $75 for that day of the session. And they were like, you just went off. And for the rest of your life, you and your kids hear that in all of the best creations of the new iteration of the music world, and you make absolutely nothing.
And knowing that it's generating millions. And so, rest in peace, Clyde Stubblefield. I was able to meet him. He hit on my ex. It was a great night. And I think it's just crazy that somebody with that level of talent and influence, just kind of, they had to fundraise for his funeral, man. And
this is a perfect segue. To me, this is the music industry. This is, unfortunately, a lot of people's reality. If you are a contributor and not the focal point. A lot of times you're left in the dust. And I'm saying that as a manager and label owner, whatever, like, I'm a bigger point than even a session musician or a producer would be in a lot of places, and I still feel it. I've watched so many music documentaries, like the guy who came up with the song for Lion King, the Lions Sing Tonight, that song, the Wind Will Whip, that one. So that the African guy, the guy who came up with the whole lick, I watched how they went through the history of how that song, basically this song has made Disney like millions upon millions upon millions, because they bought the rights to that song from the original label years ago, right? So they bought the rights to the song. So every time you hear that, it's sampled, anything, every time it's in a movie, they've made millions. And his estate went back and asked for some. They had to go through a lawsuit. They had to raise money for it, legal team, all this stuff. And I think they ended up getting something like $10 million in a trust, which was like not even a fraction of a percent of what Disney has made off of the song. And then because it was put in a trust, there was conservators of the trust, whatever, all the people taking care of it. So his family has received about $10,000 from it. He died poor. His family is currently still trying to get that money back from it's all the things. There's a million sob stories that we can tell. And I don't want to even call it a sob story because it's real, but I think about how haunting it is that people who contribute to the betterment of the world, Xavier Omar today posted how many streams it takes to get $1 as a musician. And I'm going to make a point and then maybe counteract my point. And he said, this is how many streams it takes to make $1 on each platform. And he said, clearly artists aren't valued. And I said, well, maybe we're looking for value on a plantation when the farm is next door, though, And so I think by the same token that the music industry is absurd, it's absolutely insane. In my opinion, it's terrible. I completely agree with the Issa Rae statement. It's the wild, wild west. But I do think that the onus is on us who continuously partake in it. And so I think that for us to continuously partake in it, we should be giving what we believe that should be the future of music, which is why I think that Dame, rightfully so, says, I don't think the music industry is that bad, because he's such a good human and he's trying to make it better. And he surrounds himself with other people who are better. But by and large, I think the music industry is indicative of, to me, the worst parts of the world in a lot of ways.
So let's talk about, because part of the conversation stems from what Issa said in an interview. And this is what she said. The question was posed: you spent a minute in the music business now. Does it strike you as a place where good ideas flourish? And she says, absolutely not. It's probably the worst industry that I've ever come across. I thought Hollywood was crazy. The music industry, it needs to start over. Conflicts of interest abound, archaic mentalities, crooks and criminals. It's an abusive industry, and I really feel for artists that have to come up in it. So I think Issa's great, but she's been in the music industry for all of like 4 or 5 years. And I know the cat that runs her label, Benoni, solid cat, smart cat. But I would ask them when I talk to him, I forget who their partner is because they partnered with a major.
Atlantic.
They got the deal they wanted. They did the due diligence, they did their research, and they got the deal they wanted. They set up things the way they wanted to set up things. And that to me is not possible in so many other industries. Like, you don't have a choice. And in other industry, like, the repercussions and the stakes are just much higher. So when I'm looking at this, because I didn't come from the music industry, I came from financial services. I was a consultant. I studied different industries. And in these other industries, we're talking about life or death. We're talking about, putting a number on somebody's life. The food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the chemical industry, any industry we talk about, we're talking about life and death. And I compare it to then I get into the music industry, And I'm not saying things aren't fucked up. They are. And they were way more fucked up 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's getting better. But what I'm saying, it's typically not life or death, but also we have an opportunity to be independent or set up things the way we want to set them up. And that's not even given, you're not even given that choice in so many other industries. Like we came in and we started a label from the ground up. We made really good money. Didn't even have to talk to anybody in the industry before we did that. Like where else is that possible? Again, I'm not saying that things don't need to change, deals don't need to be better, but most of the solution in the music industry is just being educated before you sign a paper. Like before you sign the paper, do you know what this means? And because we have the MEC, we have so many other platforms now sharing information. To me, there's no reason to sign a bad deal anymore. If you have fans, you have a business. You can do it all yourself. You can go direct to your fans. That's why I'm saying the music industry is kind of great, especially when you're looking at it compared to pretty much any other industry. Olive oil, like you're being sold fake ass olive oil most of the time. Like if you're looking at the credit card industry, insurance, like in most of these industries, you don't have a choice, or it's much harder to circumvent the system because you aren't given that many options for your insurance.
I feel like we're comparing a rapist to a trafficker though.
But to me, the music industry is like, because we have the ability to be independent and go direct to fans, like that's a beautiful thing. Like if you don't like the way they play that game, you can say, fuck it, I'm just going to set this up this way. Where I think most of the frustration lies is there's way too many people that want to be musicians. There's way too many people that want to be artists. And they all think they deserve to have a career in music. And the demand, it's supply versus demand. The demand is just not there to listen to that much music or to pay for that much music. So it gets very frustrating. That's like saying everybody deserves to be in the league. But it's more clearly defined that there's only 32 teams and there's only 15 spots on each team. So, all right.
Yeah. And talent in athletics is a little less abstract to people.
Yeah, I mean, so you may go overseas with your talent, but again, I'm not saying I always want artists to be paid more. I fight for the independent, I want people to make as much money as possible, but hopefully just looking at it through another lens, the fact that we could just completely say, look, I didn't know anybody in the industry until 2011, 2012, like they weren't messing with us and we were eating good. So to me, it's really just about education. Nobody's forcing anybody's hand onto a contract saying, hey, you got to sign this or I'm going to kill you and your family. Like it's really just about education. Just understand the papers that are put in front of you.
Dame, when Funk Volume was really on its ascent, did a major come by and offer, millions of dollars to just take over the label?
No. Nobody ever came and just was like, people wanted to talk to us, but they knew it never got that far to an offer. But Warner basically gave us an advance of $300,000. And I told him, I was like, look, we're not looking for an advance. We got money. Like that's not what we need. But we took $300,000 as an advance and I turned around and I advanced most of that money to the artists. To me, we just have to get smarter about our business. There's just way too many ways to set up an independent business. And if you have people that like your stuff and you can amplify that on social media, email marketing, running ads, things like that, at the same time, still continue to fight the fight. And, but I think labels are being more flexible now. Like they're doing partnerships. They're forced into having to give better deals if you have the leverage.
That's the if, yeah. But then also,
you know what you're doing.
Well, and then also, I mean, my whole thing is you shouldn't be even thinking about a deal if you don't have any leverage. That's pointless. But also, I'm just thinking about myself. So if a label, if they offer you $1 million advance, they know they can make 20 off you probably. Are you going to be happy with $1 million?
But Payne, the question should be then too, like, could you do that
yourself?
Could you extract 20 million from yourself?
Right. Yeah. No, and that's another good point. That's why I'm looking at it differently, just based on some of the artists that I hear talking about their deals are bad. I look at how there's no way of knowing what their actual net worth is, but you can make, some educated guesses, just, a range, like Meek Mill, for example. He's frustrated about his deal. He says he hasn't gotten paid from it. I think he means master royalties. I'm not sure. That suggests to me that his initial advance was probably pretty high. Is the label playing recoupment games? Without a doubt, they always do. Should he audit them? Yeah, he has the means. Why not? Does he have more money than me? Hell yeah, he has more money than all three of us combined. So it's kind of one of those things where I'm looking at the financial aspect of it and thinking to myself, would I be satisfied with, millions of dollars, but the label's making way more off of me? I personally would, just because I'm living good and, my future generations from, I'm financially conservative when it comes to spending my money and investing and all that. So only time you'll ever hear me refer to myself as conservative, but my future generations will be fine if I have that kind of money. Are the labels exploiting me? Yeah, but I signed up for that. So compare that to, and I want to talk about this because this just came out. And I appreciate the degree of transparency. I don't think it's very transparent, but the Summer Walker deal. Have you read anything about the deal points of Summer Walker's deal with what's her label called? Elevator or something?
LVRN, Love Renaissance.
Oh, Love Renaissance. Why did I think Elevator? Shout out to Elevator. They're a magazine. They're cool. So yeah, my favorite publication, Rolling Stone, is reporting heavily on Summer Walker's deal. And they're not being too specific because they know their audience. And I don't know how much specificity is even being released with regard to her deal. But apparently, after reading multiple articles, what I gathered was the deal points of her very first album deal. That's just for the first option. Her initial advance was $85,000. Am I happy being exploited for $85,000? No. Her initial royalty rate was 15% for the first two albums. The contract included 4 options. So I'm more focused on the advance because $85,000 is nothing. And you can live for a couple years off that. And then what? I mean, I guess you make another album, get another $85,000, but you're basically making, depending where you live. I mean, if you live in LA, that's not very much. If you live she lives in Atlanta, right? So, Atlanta is not the most unreasonable place to live in terms of cost of living.
That way, unfortunately.
Oh, it's getting there.
But it wasn't, you're right. When she signed the contract, it was decent. You could get a decent spot for nothing crazy.
But you can't buy a house for $85,000. And even when you double $85,000, you can't buy. So you really have to consider all of the ways you're going to monetize your career for the next 5 albums, because the contract included 4 options in addition to the initial album. So that's 5 total albums. You know these labels are going to take the option, especially someone like Summer Walker. They're going to take the options.
You have to, or it's like, when you start that you're going to be successful, so that that's the only reason you would sign that. So they're going to take the options. Like, everybody just needs to assume that.
That was the way we got Hop out of the deal. Is like they just didn't pick up the option on it, because Hop was signed to Ruthless when I started working with Hop, and they had an option for 2 or 3 more albums, and they didn't pick up the option, and that's how we were able to just write the letter and get him out of his deal.
But was he killing it at Ruthless?
No, they weren't.
That's what I'm saying. If you're Summer Walker and you're gonna only take 85,000, you have to know I have to kill it, or there's no future for me. That was just my point. Like, we have to assume that she knows that she's gonna have to keep signing on for the options.
Well, and she is killing it right now. Her album was I don't know how, I talked about my best friend being involved in the project. I don't know how long her album was number one, not on the R&B or rap charts, on the top 200. So
Until
yeah,
Adele dropped.
Well, it's Adele, yeah, freaking Adele with her vinyl, her clear vinyl. But the article was really fixating on her royalty rate for her first two albums. Of course, they don't tell us what the royalty rate was for the following albums, if it was renegotiable at that point. Hopefully, for her sake, it was. But they kept saying 15%, and then they're saying, such and such a lawyer, such and such a manager. We can't name them because they're anonymous. They don't want to get blackballed. That's Rolling Stone being dramatic, I think. But they're saying this is the worst royalty rate we've ever seen. No, it's not. What is the typical royalty rate? I want to ask the two of you. I was under the impression that the typical royalty rate was around like 16, 17, 18%.
They start at 12. If you get 14, you're good. 17, you're amazing.
Yeah, so then 15 is kind of just typical. And 4 options is kind of just typical. What's not typical to me is the advance. 85,000 is low, but also the label is well, I guess I don't know, where was she when she signed? 85,000 for an advance?
She was a dancer who was before TikTok and Reels. She was a dancer who was literally just playing her guitar on her bed. So like, and when I say dancer, just for clarity, stripper. So this was not something that she had a built-in fan base, but people in the undertones of Atlanta, people were really watching her because she was somewhat known as a dancer. And then people were shocked at her like singing and playing the guitar. So it was causing, there's other stories, but I'm just going to say on the internet, that's like a lot of how, especially the city. So no, she was not big. I think 85 for somebody her size, to me, if I would have seen 50, I would have said, oh, that was really good for her. So 85 was them knowing, like, we have a clear vision. We're going to, they were ready to run.
Okay, here's my question then. So are you saying that just because she was, I don't know, kind of just obscure and doing her bedroom thing, that 85 was a large advance, you think? Do you remember?
I'm saying because she didn't have like records out and stuff. From my understanding, if they're talking about her first deal before she put out anything, she didn't have a fan base. She didn't have records. She had a manager back then. Her name was Summer Walker, and Summer was more well known as a manager than Summer the artist.
Wait, is that Summer Walker DJ Drama's ex-wife?
Yes.
Okay.
So like, because
of Summer Walker?
Yes. That was the whole thing. That's how
that used to confuse the shit. When it first started, I'm like, they look different. Why does Summer Walker here look like this and the others?
So that was a whole
Thanks
thing.
for clearing that
Summer
up.
Walker was managing Summer Walker. So that created like a whole thing, but it was really Summer Walker's relationships, the business Summer Walker's relationships. From outside looking in, I'm not fully in their camp. I don't want to speak on it, but her relationships and then what they were doing at LVRN trying to get started was really what got that 85. It's not Summer Walker, the artist. So again, I'm saying Summer Walker, the artist, getting 85K as an advance, I think is brilliant, personally.
And people got to know that like your advance typically goes to make the music, right? You don't just take that advance and do whatever you want with it.
Right. And advance is not a signing bonus.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but then you're limited in what you can create. So yeah, I mean, even at that situation, if she didn't have any momentum, I think 15% is kind of whack, even if you don't have any momentum, but at the same time, it's like this is what's standard, especially if this is what's standard, right? Like if this is a standard deal, that's then we kind of know that we know that it's standard. So we know that to be kind of normal in the industry. I'm sure that her music business acumen it wasn't top tier at the time. It may not be top tier now. So she probably signed it, with a bit of ignorance, but just going back to what I said, if we just educate ourselves, they got to share the MEC more, join our live sessions, listen to the podcast, because you could literally save tens of thousands of dollars, possibly millions of dollars, just by having a little bit, here's my other rant. The music industry is a very simple industry. Like anybody with, a little bit of sense, a little bit of knowledge, if you studied the industry for a few days, you could probably dodge 85% of the bullshit. Like literally I could take somebody for a few days and be like, look, these are the main things you got to avoid. Main things. If you just avoid these, 85%, you're going to be able to dodge. Like, there's not that many other industries where you can say that, where you could just study it for a few days and be like, all right, I'm good. Like, but it's really just a few things if you take the time to understand, and, you probably won't fuck up your career.
So I agree with you on that. That's why I'm saying that when Xavier Omar says, artists aren't valued. And I'm like, because we're looking on a plantation, right? Like we're looking in the wrong spot for value. But at the same time, that doesn't relinquish responsibility to me. It still doesn't negate Issa saying this is a terrible industry, right? And I'm not saying that because of I think 85,000 to a new artist is actually, I'm with you. I'm like, no, we're not taking money. Like I'm consulting with another label right now and they're structuring their deals. And I'm like, we're not going to give artists this much money because I want them to have a chance to breathe in the future. So I just want to say with Summer Walker's deal, if she's at a 15% rate, this is why the music industry is so bad, Dame. This is why it makes me mad. I was explaining this to one of my team members last night, how recouping works. And she was just like blown away. So if you're Summer Walker and you get $85,000 off of every $100,000 that the label gets, your 85 is recouped off of that 15%. So you have to make the label $536,000 before you're even making any money, right? So they gave you 85, you make 536,000 and you have no money. So say they give you 85 in January of 2022 and it takes you till February of 2024 to make $500,000, right? So you have gone 2 years and a month on $85,000. That's crazy. Now, obviously,
yeah, okay.
If you tour, there's other options depending on what type of split you have with them, depending on what your deal is. Lord willing, they're not doing a 360, 15%. There's merch, there's options. But if you look at somebody like Summer Walker, who doesn't like to tour, if you look at, again, being a woman, I manage a woman. It is so much more expensive to be a woman in the industry than a man. So our music videos cost double because we have dancers, we have hair, we have makeup. The lighting has to be a certain type of way so that you know what I'm saying? There's all sorts of things like this. So being a woman in the industry is expensive. So they didn't just give her $85,000. They did $85,000 plus tour support, marketing, whatever. So again, now she's looking at just off the 85, she has to make them 500 something. And then for every 100,000 that she makes after that, she's only taking 15% of that. That is the absolute worst loan, worst business. That's insane. And then they own it in perpetuity and then can sell it So it's not even that you recouped and then you get your masters back, at least, because they took on the financial burden. They own your intellectual property for the rest of your life. You cannot pass it down. You can't make anything off of it. Most of the time, you're also getting signed to a publishing deal. So you're getting a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the art that you created. You're literally just the face. You are not an artist anymore. You are the face of a movement, and they're taking all of your capital.
And I hope she waited on the publishing deal. I don't know. I hope she waited until the album dropped and then maybe got $1 million at least off the. I don't know.
But here's the thing. If you don't know, and if you're looking at the $85,000, you could be 6 months into your deal and you could have, if you're good too, this is if you're financially savvy, you could be 6 months into your deal, which is a lot of times what happened. They come and offer you a publishing deal when you have no money left. So I don't know what her deal is, but I'm just saying off rip, that to me is absolutely insane. That it's the music industry, in my opinion, I say this consistently, is modern day slavery, because it creates this grasp of hope that you're going to be able to eat, but you're not even a sharecropper. A sharecropper to me is at least a profit sharing deal. Depending on if it's a terrible profit sharing deal, you're at least a sharecropper. It's slavery right now. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I do believe, I'm with you. You can learn and you can educate and you can grow and you can do all of these things. But at face value, I'm going to call shit. The music industry is shit, like real talk. And I get that anybody can learn it. Anybody can. That's just like stocks. Anybody can learn stocks, right? And you could be lucky, you can know numbers, stocks. But the truth of the matter is the SEC is fraud. Like, they make up their rules on a rolling basis as they go. They're like the CDC. They're like every fucking government agency. They do not care. As soon as somebody gets a certain amount of money, they can lobby the SEC to change whatever the regulations are. And then they can go, you know what I'm saying? The same thing that happened with this whole AMC movie theater. Everybody is like, the revolution has begun. The wealth is going to be redistributed to the people, right? And then AMC literally was like, oh, we're counting our stocks. Oh, we're doing this. Oh, and suddenly it gets funny. It gets funky. All these future millionaires, there's nothing to be held. So I'm with you that you can navigate the music industry in a different way, but it's the same pile of shit that we're getting everywhere else. And I think, especially again, as a woman, this system is oppressive. I had to wait 10 years with all of my expertise just to start making real money. And when I say wait, it's because when you get offered a job and you realize that you're the light in the room, but they're treating you as a step stool, why would I want to go work for a company? You know, it's like the NBA. People say, I think that sports are modern day slavery. People will disagree with me because they're like, well, they're millionaires. But if I look at somebody like LeBron James and he's generating billions, right? And he's only getting a fraction of that from the NBA and now has to go outside to create other money. My thought process is he's still a version of a slave. And again, people are going to disagree with me, but I'm looking at the wealth distribution, not the amount of money that you have, right? I'm looking at the percentages. I think that when the wealth distribution is this far gone, and when people can tell other people what they can and cannot do with their art. In the article, she talks about how she went to go clear songs and how labels would not let her clear the songs and all these different things that they were jamming their artist up in and abusing their artists. They're not, it's literally, you are a piece of property. You are my bargaining chip. And yes, if you have leverage like Issa Rae, they got the deal that they wanted from the label, and they're able to give equitable deals to artists, which I think is what we're doing. We're saying, hey, this system is fucked and we're going to come fix it. So for me, yes, there's hope. I think that we don't have to live on the plantation. I think that there's plenty of us who are out in the wild trying to make life happen and trying to help people not get pulled to the plantation. But by and large, this shit is a plantation.
But then Dame comes out with Funk Volume and offers profit sharing deals that, I mean, compared to the Summer Walker deal, are night and day. I mean, the artists get master reversion. The artists don't have to deal with the crazy recoupment. They get advances. They get tour support. You know, and what happens? Dame is now seen as this evil person that Hobson made rich, and he stole all their money, and he should have given up this. So it's just.
But they played off of that, right? They played off the stereotypical drama, and because people don't really know the music industry, they just assume that it's the same, and it's the same drama, it's the same issues. So they definitely like artists can be evil too, like, and that's probably part of where my stance comes from. But it's also what you said, right? Like you brought up stocks, right? Like if you think something shady is going on on these platforms where you're buying stocks or with the SEC, where are you going to go? And you still want to buy equity in company, where are you going to go? Tell me where.
You're right.
Tell me where you're going to go. That's why I'm saying, like, the music industry offers a solution now that we have these platforms to go direct to fans. Summer Walker.
Okay, but where did Meek Mill go? That's the point. Meek Mill had to go to the internet because he had no options once he got into the shit show. So I get what you're saying, but I'm saying if you start wrong, there's possibly you could be stuck for a really long time. Kanye West, clear example. Wrong. He started wrong and is still like we talked about it last week. He's messed up his deal. Sean's deal is messed up. Like if you start wrong in this industry, you could be a slave for a really long time.
So I'm one of the people that don't like the slave analogy, because to me, like, if you know actually what slavery was, and like, for people that don't understand like real slavery, it distorts like how brutal slavery actually was. So I don't like hearing that.
You're acting like slavery was only in when Black people were exported to the United States. That slavery exists in so many varying formats. It's taking people's rights from them. I get what you're saying. I 100%, because we are all descendants of Africans. I get what you're saying. But just because people aren't being it has the same effects. Like they're being stripped of their legacy. Their children have nothing to eat off of. They personally, you know what I'm saying? Like
just use LeBron as an example when you saying stripped of his legacy and you don't.
Again, he's. The difference is that he could go outside and make money. It's a wealth distribution situation. So like, yes, his children will be fine. His children's children will be fine. But I'm saying that if we whittle it down, same percentage wise, do you know what I'm saying? Like I think about my artist when he left Def Jam, he's made more on my label independently in a year than we made on Def Jam in 2.5 years. Do you know what I'm saying? Way bigger machine, way bigger money, all of these different things. So I'm just saying that the residual effect, of course, nobody is like, oh, poor LeBron James. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that as you look at the way that it goes down and it degrades, I think that all of these things it's literally just building the slave class and the slave mentality, that the dispensation of wealth goes to the ones who hold it. And we're just stuck. We have to play within this system. And I do agree with you that the system doesn't have to be played with as an independent. But again, we're the anomaly. And then even still, we're going to have this rant and talk. There are still dudes who are going to listen to this and be like, yeah, but my dream is to sign with RCA. And it's like, that's fine. But if you know this, like, I can't say because people aren't being whipped, it's not slavery. There's women being brought to America currently working in hair braiding shops. They're not being whipped, but they're not being paid, and they live in a basement and they're not being fed.
And that's totally different than the music industry, right? Like that's that. I think anybody that makes money in the music industry is an anomaly. Like, it is just not an industry where everybody's supposed to be successful. That's just the reality of the situation. But on the flip side, when we talk about other like plantations, we have to also give value. Like, LeBron wouldn't be LeBron if the NBA wasn't the NBA, and the NBA was born over decades. Like, ping pong you're not going to be LeBron playing ping pong. Like, because ping pong there's no large institution, the popularity is not there. Like, but that has to be built over decades, right?
But if I build the popularity, I want a market share. That's my point. For instance, 76ers. This is like, I won't even claim to be the biggest basketball buff, but I'm very big on the business of industries that I'm interested in. So if we look at Allen Iverson's impact on basketball, what he did for Philadelphia, what he did for the 76ers, the amount of jobs that he increased in the city after he came to the city, all these different things. I know he was foolish with his money, and I'm not going to give him an out for that. But the fact that that man created billions in revenue for his city and then retired broke, to me, is indicative of a system that doesn't value the people who build the value for it. And that's why I do believe that, again, and like I said, when I started, Xavier Omar said, artists aren't valued. And I said, because we're looking for the wrong place for value. So I'm not saying that we have to be on the plantation, but I am saying that when you contribute to the household needs that are contribute to the music industry, when you build this industry and you cannot be rewarded as such, I feel like it's a very similar correlation. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you think about a Walmart employee and how much money and what revenue they generate for the company, right? And I'm not somebody who believes that every employee should be paid as an executive, because I think executive mindsets and the way that makes money, right? Because I'm an executive, I get that. But if I look at the amount of revenue that a Walmart employee generates, but the dispensation of that revenue to them, it's unequivocal. You know, and it's like there's no value placed on the human factor. Right. I just think that wealth, and this is not some like Marxist, like whatever, I understand capitalism. And I'm not saying that communism, everybody needs everything equally. I'm not at all saying that. I'm just saying that if I make $100 million for a record label and they say, yeah, but this contract you're only supposed to get $2 million off that $100 million because that's what you signed. I feel like that is absolutely ridiculous, because no, maybe you couldn't have generated $100 million from yourself, but you probably could have generated $5 or $6 million for yourself. And now that you're in this situation, you're getting so much. And I get the platform begets I get it. I just think it's a slippery slope to say that it's okay to treat people like this, and it's okay for people to sign and get stuck into these egregious deals. I'm 100% saying that the industry is evil, and we haven't even gotten to the toxicity and the terribleness of just the way that the humans are treated outside of contracts. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I agree with you. Part of the reason that this industry is shit is because artists are trash. Like, I could write a doctoral thesis on how trash artists can be, but I don't know. I just think the industry is trash. I think it's trash, which is why I'm here, because I want to change it.
But Summer Walker is like the millionth story that we've heard over decades. And it's just the same thing over and over and over again. Like, at what point do we start taking more responsibility for the situations that we get ourselves in, and then be like, oh no, this deal's not, I signed it, but this deal. I'd
like to note, I don't think her deal is that bad. I just want to put that out.
Yeah, well, whether it's Summer Walker, whether it's MEC, whether it's Big Sean, whoever, and we're typically, these examples, obviously there's probably a number of examples where people aren't still millionaires, right? We're still talking about, I don't know, Summer Walker, but Big Sean, Meek Mill, they're still millionaires at the end of the day. But we can't keep talking about these stories next year, the year after that, because they continue to sign these deals. Like, it makes, and I know that some people are in situations where they're desperate, or maybe they got tricked by somebody. But even listening to this podcast, for young people that are listening now, like, oh, all right, I may not know everything, but I know that I need to do my research before I sign a deal. Yep. Like, if I don't know anything else, I know that before I sign something, I should probably know what this means for me today, and if I do really well, and if I do really bad. Like, that's the bare minimum. And, like I said, you just don't have these kind of options in other industries. So, we need to get
people
better.
Don't look at the music industry as a business, though. We've already been there. They're just like, right. My hopes and dreams are all here. So
that's the issue, because then we have stories every year. There are 2 or 3 stories about an artist discovering that the deal they signed years prior isn't exactly what they wanted it to be. Some artists don't say anything because they're either so distracted or they're so rich that it just kind of doesn't matter. And then some artists are rich and focused. Like Big Sean, he's worth tens of millions of dollars. Probably Meek Mill is in the same situation. But they're talking about it. Kanye West is a billionaire, right? And he's talking about this. So I think we need to stop focusing on the individual deals. If we want to, and we don't, if we want to change the industry in a real way, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take us to not focus on this person's deal that we learned about because of a Rolling Stone article, and have selective outrage for the stuff that is publicized. It has to be an all-out effort to change the entire music industry, every practice, but we have to understand the practices first, and we don't. We know it's unfair, but the average person doesn't understand why it's unfair. They don't know what a fair deal is. They don't know what an unfair deal is. And so what ends up happening is it's just this revolving door of artists going in. Most artists who sign, we never even know sign. Their deals are probably terrible because they had no leverage when they walked into the deal. So it has to be an all or nothing approach, because if we're focusing on Summer Walker or Big Sean, there are 1,000 other artists that got signed right behind them that whose story we don't know. And it's just going to continue happening in perpetuity, just like these labels own the masters, and nothing's going to change. So hopefully, yeah.
Don't say nothing's going to change. We're creating the change right now.
Well, we're creating on an individual, and hopefully slowly. Here's the thing: individuals changing their own deals, individuals watching the MEC, individuals learning about the music business and walking into a situation once they've built leverage and actually understanding their deal points and demanding something favorable. Will that help the next artist? Probably, on a very, very slow level, especially if they share the information, they share the wisdom with their peers. It'll happen very slowly. Is there a way to fast track that? I don't know. It's like, is there a way to fast track? You said NFT. All right, I'm done.
I mean, this already happened. Like, people are complaining, but the game has been changed. Like, people are living good. People are putting out music, doing what they love. Like, I know tons of independent artists that are talented and doing their thing, and just, they may not be household names. They may not be in the movies and things like that, but they're eating good. They're taking care of their family. Like, the game's been changed. It's people crying at the people that ain't figured it out yet, or just don't have the product to figure it out. Like, again, I'll say this.
Okay, but what do you say about Issa then? Because that's my question.
I'm gonna try to get Benoni to come on because Benoni runs her label, and
right.
I know him. I'm gonna invite him on, because I want to hear why she's saying that, right? We can't just, because people.
She listed it out, like the next question. She told why.
I just saw the screen. I didn't see that. What was why?
I'm about to pull it up. It's a really short paragraph because I was just reading it before we got on here.
Because if she was able to come in, obviously she has a lot of leverage and set up things the way she wants to set it up, then, I don't. She said it's kind of shocking. I don't want to get too specific, but crafting our own deals for the soundtrack with the labels and artists was so convoluted. And that's when she starts talking about a conflict of interest. Then she says, and finding out how artists were treated by other labels, being a creator myself, knowing what I want in terms of production of the company, I'd like to think that radio is more artist friendly than any of the other than a lot of other labels and companies out there. So she's talking about the deals and then the type of respect that the artists get. I have heard her say that she feels like artists don't get any type of respect. Well, she's a creative though. We need those. She says she don't want to get into specifics, but we need to get into specifics to understand where she's coming from. Because at the end of the day, like, she is a creative. She's going to be on the side of the creators. And she's only been in the music business for like 4 minutes. Like, so we need those specifics, and hopefully Benoni will be down to come on and talk about it. Just talk about that perspective. Because again, I don't want to make it seem like I think the music industry is great. And there's nothing, it's not perfect for sure. But, there's just so many people that have their heads down figuring it out that I see, winning. I'm like, man, this is amazing. There's not too many other industries where you can do this, like where you can just not even know anybody in the music industry and make millions of dollars. Like, how many other industries can you say that in? Like, it just doesn't. You have to see other industries and work in other industries to understand maybe my perspective. But it's like this is kind of like a playground. Like we can just create. We could just create.
I'm just saying, worse doesn't mean, or better doesn't mean great, though. That's all. That's what I was saying. I was saying it's like we're comparing. I feel like a rapist to a trafficker. I still feel like the music industry has redeemable qualities and people can prosper, but that doesn't negate the fact that it is inherently trash. And she's somebody who's winning in it, because you're saying, oh, it's only people. I have the same disgruntlements. Like, we are all in this room or on this Zoom winning in the music industry. She is clearly winning. She's been here for 4 minutes, got a label, got #1 songs because of her TV show. But it's still a very valid critique, I think. It doesn't mean that it's not a shit show just because we figured it out.
But it's an industry where only 5% or less are supposed to win in the first place.
Correct.
So 95% of people are going to be frustrated and can't win, like regardless of what you do.
I think that's life, though.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's industry, it's capitalism, it's winners and losers. So we might be able to talk. There are always going to be the breakthrough people in this capitalist system, and we tout the ones that have broken through. And then by the same token, we look at the people who are actively creating their wealth and supporting their wealth, like you said with the Walmart employee example, and we say, oh, well, they don't deserve shit. The whole, like, why would McDonald's employees get $15 an hour? They don't create $15 an hour worth of value. And it's like, what?
Crazy.
And then they'll turn around and say, well, paramedics deserve more money. Yeah, but do you realize that the paramedics are working for a similar system as McDonald's employees? They're all creating something that's been commodified and sold to people. One happens to be shitty food that we shouldn't be eating. The other happens to be healthcare in a system that actually isn't based on caring for health. It's all a for-profit system. So you're really just arguing against yourself and not making any sense. So I think with the music business, it's the same in a lot of ways. I just think that the barrier of entry is way different. It's easier in the music business because you can turn around and become an artist tomorrow. If your friend has a mic that's lying around by a laptop, you can't just open
your iPhone.
Yeah, or your phone. You can't just say, you know what, I'm gonna give McDonald's some competition. I'm gonna open up a restaurant tomorrow without a lot of money and a lot of business know-how. I can. Anyone can make beats. Anyone. I hate to say it. Not everyone can succeed. Certainly, like you said, it's 5% of the people who are really successful. But anyone can do it. Not everyone can become a lawyer. Not everyone can become a stock trader. There's way more overhead associated with it. There's way more of a learning curve. So I guess I'm agreeing with both of you and trying to be diplomatic.
We're all agreeing. I just want to say that we're all agreeing. I think there's just a few points that but I'm with you. I think if you do the work, you'll see the results, you'll win, or else we wouldn't be here together talking about this.
The only thing I'm saying is everything that you're complaining about in the industry can be dodged by not signing a contract. That's the whole
until we go independent, and then we got to go to the platforms and use Facebook and this and that, and then things get ugly too, because where else are you going to go? So it's everywhere you turn in the business, in the music business, it's always you eventually hit a brick wall, and the brick wall has the following words painted on it, where else are you going to go if not Instagram?
Yeah, it depends because I mean, we trash record labels and say 360 deals are bad, but when we look around at like movies and the front page of big magazines and things like that, it's all major label artists. There's very few independent artists that really get to the superstar status, right? So I'm in the middle of a lot of different things because, I try to see things from the label's perspective too, because if I'm seeing that only major label artists are in big movies, in all these crazy brand deals and things like that, there's obviously value created there. So what's wrong with it?
Or is it a monopoly? I don't think that's a fair assertion. It's like, if I already have the connection, I'm going to keep using the connection, and therefore like it makes it difficult. I get you, because I agree. Major labels get big place for their artists, but that's a sacred cow. That's an established connection point, and it just has to be disrupted. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, that's the only reason. It's not because they're better or more efficient. It's because the relationships are already in place. That's why Issa could skip over a lot of the bullshit, because she already had the leverage and the relationships in place.
Exactly. But all I'm saying, that's why I'm not mad at 360s for some situation, because if a label can put you in a movie, movies is not their business. Like, they deserve a percentage of that. Like, in my opinion.
I will agree. I agree with you on that. As somebody who owns a company that shops artists, I agree. They do need a percentage of it. But I'm with you. If you don't want to be stuck, don't sign to a label, because here's the thing. Music is a loss leader. I think if artists stop looking at their art as the thing that makes, as their music as the thing that makes money, and value themselves as a holistic artist, then they'll start making money. When you look at yourself as an artist instead of a music maker, and your value isn't solely on your music, you'll make money.
We could debate that next week, because
let's debate it next week.
Music is a loss leader for some artists, but it's making a lot of people money.
It is, but it's a loss leader. It always starts as a loss leader. We can debate this next week, but you can't tell me not one of your artists didn't start with music being a loss leader. Not one.
Oh, the way it starts. Oh, that's any product ever.
Right, but truth of the matter is that if that is when it starts, it's not any product ever, because gold is never a loss leader. Gold is like, but I get you. But if music is a loss leader, here's the thing. Any artist who's solely making their money off of music is undervaluing themselves. Drake makes tons more off of brand partnerships, everything. You know what I'm saying? That's why I personally believe if your emphasis is solely on making money off of music, you're underselling yourself and undervaluing yourself. You should always see it as a loss leader.
And if that's the case, and you've been listening to the MEC, you haven't really heard anything that we like. If you're just focusing on music at this point, that's just ridiculous.
That's why people sign, though, because they're like, my music's got to take off. It's like, beloved, you could make money so many other ways.
Let's talk about this next week, because that's a whole can of worms.
For sure.
Great show. Everyone still loves each other, and we appreciate it. No, I mean, because some people, they love the drama of the podcast universe. And
wouldn't it be boring if we all completely agreed, though?
Right.
Life isn't a monolith.
Well, right. It's just you got to give the people what they want. This is the drama for the first episode of the year.
I'm about to be labeled the major label guy. He's a snake. Don't listen to him, because he
about to be. You've been labeled that. What are you talking about? All right. Once again, we appreciate you tuning in. Get ready for more drama, more fireworks in the up and coming 2022 season of the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. Never miss an episode. Never miss a live session either. Text a word to a number. What is that word? What's that number, Dan?
All you got to do is text MEC to 844-206-7800. We'll send you a text right before we go live. Listen to the sessions that can keep you out of a bad deal.
Let me plug something.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. For those of you who want a deeper look into the industry and you don't want to be taken advantage of, maybe you can't afford a manager, or you're a manager, but you need a little bit more help, I am launching this month the Excellence Academy. And that is just a coaching program for entrepreneurs in the music industry. So if you're an artist, if you're an exec, whatever, you're trying to learn more, it's super easy. We're on Patreon twice a month. You can get on the coaching calls with us live, or you can watch the playback. So check out the link in my bio, the Excellence Academy. Come see me. I'm trying to keep you from signing these egregious deals.
There you go. Congrats on the launch. I look forward to seeing how this goes.
All right. Appreciate you tuning in. Peace.